Hello, all. Welcome back for year 2 of TwilightClan. Happy to have everybody back. And if there's any new faces, go ahead and check out year 1. Things will probably make a little more sense that way. This year was honestly a lot. We celebrated some incredible milestones, like our very first clan-born litter of kittens and the formation of new relationships. However, we also faced a lot of heart-wrenching losses. We begin the year with 18 members, and by the end, we still actually have that same number, but nearly half of them are fresh faces. Time to dive into the recap, starting, as always, with our brave leader, Charstar. Somehow, she has managed to make it through another year without losing any of her lives, and that's certainly a win. But it has not been easy. Charstar has spent nearly the entire year hopping in and out of the medicine cat den. It's really starting to feel as if her legs are cursed. If you recall from last year, Charstar had a close call when her leg got caught in a two-leg trap. That injury healed, but just one mood later, it happened again. She got her leg caught in another two-leg trap. After spending 3 more agonizing moons recuperating, you would really hope that she would learn her lesson. But no. As soon as she was back on her paws, she went out and ran into a dog. The ensuing battle left her with a severely mangled leg. To add to this comedy of errors, I need to remind you, one of the medicine cats is none other than her daughter, Snapdragon. So imagine poor Snapdragon having to treat her mother's blunders this entire moon. Still, Charstar is a fighter. She managed to pull through, though now with permanent weakness in her leg. She actually started to have this weakness in her leg earlier in the moon, but she ignored the signs. She also took an apprentice, though we'll talk more about that later. Next up, we've got the deputy, Logflake. Logflake certainly had her paws full this year. She had to step up to take on some of Charstar's duties while the leader was sidelined in the medicine cat den. Though, on the bright side, Logflake discovered she's got a passion for teaching. She's been working with her first apprentice, Cinnamon Shade, who you see her running with in this art piece, and later Icepaw, her second apprentice. The bond between her and Cinnamon Shade grew stronger as they spent more time together, even after he graduated. This briefly led to some speculation about a potential blossoming romance. Even though she was his mentor, they're only 7 moons apart in age, and she was assigned him the same moon that she became a warrior, so I at least would not be completely against them as a couple. And it honestly feels in character for an ambitious cat like Cinnamon Shade to shoot his shot with the deputy. But, according to the relationship trackers, they're not even as close as I thought. They're not even that close as friends. Nevertheless, Cinnamon Shade came through with a really heroic act, saving her from an enemy warrior. Maybe he's just a loyal clanmate, looking out for his former mentor and the clan's deputy. Who knows? But whatever it was, Logflake does put a little bit more trust in him now, though it's still just average. Cinnamon Shade actually doesn't seem to like any of his clanmates that much, with the exception of his siblings. He doesn't dislike anyone too much, but he doesn't go out of his way to cozy up to anybody. Something else that I failed to mention in the last episode is that Cinnamon Shade was born with partial hearing loss. It's yet to come up or affect anything in-game, and it doesn't seem to bother him, which is why it had completely slipped my mind. Who knows, though? Maybe it'll become relevant in the future. Before I can explain the moon that Ghost Apple has had, we need to talk about two of his adopted sons, Shaded Drift and Sandbellow. These two boys kicked off the year with a high note. Despite being the runt, Shaded Drift earned his warrior name alongside both of his brothers. You already saw Cinnamon Shade earlier. During their ceremony, Ghost Apple gifted him beautiful Lily of the Valley flowers. Meanwhile, Sandbellow was bestowed an even greater honor, his very own apprentice. Freezepaw, one of Jaco's kits. The joy was short-lived, however, as Freezepaw tragically lost her life to a wolverine during her second moon of training. Thinking he might be able to redeem himself, Sandbellow sprang into action when a dog threatened Freezepaw's sister, Icepaw. Unfortunately, fate was not on his side, and he could not save Shaded Drift, who suffered a devastating leg injury and bled out. Sandbellow was also injured, but he held on for another 2 moons before he succumbed to his infection. Ghost Apple was torn apart by the loss of his sons. He was nearly paralyzed with grief and had constant nightmares. He was riddled with guilt, thinking maybe if he had done something more, he could have stopped the bleeding for Shaded Drift or kept the infection from taking away Sandbellow. But he couldn't. He spent moons lost in despair until Snapdragon finally convinced him to just come out of his nest and go on a walk, get some fresh air. And that day changed a lot. On his walk, he stumbled upon a deceased she-cat and her trio of newborn kittens. As Ghost Apple cared for the kittens, the weight of his heartache began to lift. But tragically, fate had different plans. During an outing, he was attacked by a badger. Thanks to his old age, he couldn't really run away, and he passed away at 164 moons old. With Ghost Apple gone, the mantle of leadership in the Medicine Cat Den fell to the newly named Snapdragon Valley. She's now the head Medicine Cat, and Jaco is her steadfast second in command. She really came into her own this year, proving without a doubt to Charstar that though it might not have been what she had originally imagined for her future, the Medicine Cat Den is truly where Snapdragon Valley belongs. On the same moon that she earned her full Medicine Cat name, Snapdragon Valley discovered that one of the younger cats in the clan, Burnetpaw, was harboring a crush on her. And to her own surprise, she found herself charmed by the younger cat, and they started spending more and more time together. Snapdragon Valley would find excuses to take her out as a guard on patrol, and the two became undeniably close. Snapdragon was also the first cat to learn of Burnetpaw, now Burnet Spot's, complicated feelings about her own or their own gender. And Snapdragon helped find the labels that felt right. Burnet Spots ended up coming out as non-binary, and not long after, the two made their bond official, becoming mates. These two were so cute together, and they even had hopes of one day starting a family. Sure, they wouldn't be able to have kids of their own, but they could always adopt, or maybe they could find some tomcat outside the clans who would act like a donor. Tragically, just as their dreams seemed like they could become a reality, fate dealt a cruel blow. Burnet Spots was wandering in the forest and on the cliffs in search of flowers to brighten their nest when a sudden rustle from above startled her. A massive buzzard swooped down, knocking her off balance. She lost her footing and tumbled from the cliff's edge. Although her body was not recovered, Snapdragon Valley felt an unshakable certainty that Burnet Spots was gone. The dreams they had together, once so vibrant and full of promise, were shattered, leaving poor Snapdragon Valley with nothing but memories of their once beautiful moments together. Jaco is doing his best. He was pretty torn up about the loss of his daughter earlier this year, and it caused him to become more prickly towards his two remaining children, even though they tried their best to comfort him. But that changed when he started to become close to Rocktuft. Rocktuft was a cat who seemed to be on a lot of cats' minds this year. She was the object of crushes from Ghost Apple, Charstar, and even her former apprentice, Vinetuft. And all of these crushes were mostly mutual, though Rocktuft never acted on any of them, and none of the other cats seemed to go far enough as to say something to her. No, strangely enough, the cat that managed to draw her attention was the childish and nerdy Jaco. He didn't have the pretty looks that Vinetuft has, or the status and influence that Charstar possesses, but he was clever, and he always laughed at her stupid jokes. The two became mates about halfway through the year, and Jaco was toyed with the idea of retiring from his medicine cat duties so he could spend more of his time with her. However, when he brings this up, she usually cuffs him around the ear, tells him she will not hear of it. She may be an elder in name, but she certainly hasn't given up on all her duties, so he best not be planning to either. The next cat to join our lineup is a fresh addition to the clan. Her name is Little Nikki. She arrived at the tail end of this last moon of the year, so not much is really known about who she is or who she will become. She doesn't even really have a warrior name yet. It hasn't been decided whether, if she ever gets to be a warrior, if she will keep her name, or if she'll change it to be something more warrior-like. A former kitty pet, Nikki carries the elegance of domestic life in her soft fur and delicate demeanor. And she even has the collar to prove it, a gold filigree. She looks like a pampered house pet still. But her story took a dark turn when she was abandoned by her two legs. Little Nikki can only speculate about the reasons for her abandonment. Perhaps it had something to do with her lady person's swollen belly, a sign of impending change that might have felt too overwhelming. Or maybe her own troubling health played a role. For the past moon, she has been plagued by a persistent cough, one that has left her gasping for breath and occasionally even bringing blood to her delicate paws. I am really hoping she can pull through this red cough, because she's honestly just so cute and sweet. I think she would make a great addition to the clan if she can manage to survive this. Vinetuft had a pretty relaxed moon. She is one of the cats who had developed a crush on Rocktuft, but it never went anywhere. And now that Rocktuft is mates with Jaco, Vinetuft is less sure that she wants to push things. Personally, I am all for the thruples and poly relationships, but I'm trying to let things progress naturally, and Vinetuft hasn't pushed things, so I can't either. She has become better friends with Antler Days, and she does have a new apprentice, though. So things might get interesting for her going into the next year. Another new face to this clan is Habikafur. Just like Little Nikki, Habikafur was abandoned by his two legs for unknown reasons. He was guessing it had something to do with whatever illness he had, but that cleared up quickly, so he has already started his warrior duties. He's only been around for 4 moons, so he has not formed many deep connections. He is trying to become friends with Antler Days, and he has a small crush on Moonswarm, but neither she-cat have given him the time of day. Initially, I was thinking he could be the clan's new mediator. However, looking at his personality, I thought better of it. He is vengeful and a swift runner, which make him far more of a warrior type than a mediator. Antler Days has also been having a pretty laid back year. Although she's still a very aloof cat, she has discovered she's got some talent in storytelling. She's often been seen with some of the clan kittens following her around, asking for stories of days long gone past. The funny thing is, since she's never been a lore keeper or much of a storyteller, I can only assume that she's got to learn these stories from her friend Moonswarm, seeing as Moonswarm actually is a storyteller and a lore keeper. She has also done a good job at making friends this moon. She's become closer with Vinetuft, Moonswarm, and most of all, Snapdragon Valley. Antler Days has awkwardly attempted to comfort the medicine cat following the death of Burnet Spots, but it's complicated by the fact that Antler Days never really liked her former apprentice all that much, and she's starting to develop feelings for Snapdragon Valley. She doesn't really want to act on these, at least not yet, as she knows Burnet Spots' death is way too fresh. It only happened this final moon. Moonswarm had quite a busy year. At the very start of the year, she announced she was having kittens. She did not, and still has not, told anyone who their father was, other than the fact that he was an outsider. People thought she would say something once the kittens were apprentices, but she didn't. They are 9 moons old now, and she has still not revealed the big secret. Some cats suspected that the father of her kits was James, a local kitty pet who is often seen hanging around the territory. It could make some sense with a stretch of the imagination. James was good friends with Moonswarm's brother, Hawthornfur, and if you squinted, his bangle pelt kind of resembled the rosette spots on one of Moonswarm's kits. But there was a problem with this theory, because James is actually a she-cat. Honestly, Moonswarm finds the clan's speculation hilarious. After all, her kits are TwilightClan born and raised, so that's what really matters, right? And nobody has really treated them differently. All the speculation honestly seems more like a game than anything else. Hawthornfur was so excited to be an uncle. Any time that he was not busy training his apprentice, Rainpaw, he was spending checking up on his sister and nieces. He made it his personal duty to ensure that the 3 of them were constantly fed, entertained, and cared for. Hawthornfur even named one of his nieces Mimic Kit. For extra flavor, I decided that any time I decide to change a cat's name from whatever they were originally generated with, it means someone else in the clan helped them choose their name. In this case, Moonswarm was originally going to call her Brown Kit, but Hawthornfur thought it sounded a bit drab, especially when her sister got the far more interesting name of Echo. And so, she would be called Mimic. Hawthornfur was hoping to ask Charstar and Moonswarm to consider letting him train one of the girls. TwilightClan usually lets the parents and family take part in choosing mentors. But one day, while he and his sister were out for a walk, they stumbled into a badger's nest. In the escape, Hawthornfur re-broke his bad leg. It wasn't going to be a fun recovery, but Hawthornfur wasn't too concerned. He had recovered from a broken leg before. Surely he could do it again. Unfortunately, the badger must have had some nastiness in its mouth, because Hawthornfur contracted a bad infection. He fought the infection for the better part of 6 moons, but it proved to be too much, and at the end of this year he passed away. Violet Fade was incredibly excited to become a warrior this year. However, much to her own dissatisfaction, she graduated a moon later than her brothers. She blames her joint problems, though deep down she knows it probably had more to do with her stubbornness and inability to take advice. Now she is still as bold and daring as ever, though she's learning to be more clever about how she uses her daring. Or hopefully she can learn. Right now she's in the medicine den, healing from a broken leg. She wishes that she could say she got it fighting the dog that killed her brothers, or even because of the fight she had with a fox early this moon. But no, it happened because she slipped on some ice in the camp. I've already spoiled Freezepaw's fate, but I made her speed paint, so she is going to get her moment to shine. Freezepaw was super excited to be an apprentice at the beginning of this year. Caring for her clan was something she had been talking about doing ever since she was brought here by her father, Jaco. She even asked to gather moss on her very first patrol, which surprised her mentor, Sandbellow. But, as you guys already know, her warrior training was short-lived. It was only her second moon of training when she was killed by a wolverine. While she is not a full-blown vengeful spirit by any means, I do think she is more restless than most other StarClan cats. She felt she had so much more to do with her life. If she had been made a warrior, I think she would have been named something like Freezefang. Jaco's other daughter, Ice Ram, dealt with a lot of survivor's guilt this past year. Obviously, she lost her sister, Freezepaw, and after the death of her sister, Ice Ram struggled with her remaining familial connections. Her father was dealing with his own grief, of course, and Rain Whisker already hardly talked to her. It was easy for the young she-cat to feel isolated. And it did not help that she graduated late. Though it wasn't all bad, she enjoyed training with her mentor, Logflake, and she would take the occasional adventure around the territory when she needed to clear her head. Unfortunately, it was during one of these adventures that she strayed too close to some two-legs, and she got picked up. As of right now, who knows how long it will be before she makes her way home, if she ever does. This leaves only one of Jaco's kits left in TwilightClan. His once bossy and outspoken son, Rain Whisker, has grown into a noble but insecure warrior. Rain Whisker truly flourished under Hawthorne Fur's mentoring. He became a great fighter as well as an eloquent speaker. Now that Hawthorne Fur is gone, he's not sure what he's going to do. Like the rest of his family, Rain Whisker was touched by the loss of Freezepaw, becoming more grumpy and argumentative. Slowly, over the past moon, he has made some effort to reforge the bond he had with his father, though it has not come easily. And now that Ice Ram is missing, Rain Whisker feels extra pressure to be everything that his clan and his family could need. Moonswarm's daughters have a dynamic which is quite similar to the one that she shared with her brother, Hawthorne Fur, especially when they were kittens. Echo has always been very brave and outgoing, and shares her mother's love of stories. Meanwhile, Mimic Paw was originally much more shy, but very fierce, just like her uncle. She's always been an avid play fighter, something he adores about her. Mimic Paw's name is actually a little bit ironic, as she was born deaf, and has always relied on mimicking her sister's behavior in order to learn how to be a good warrior. Despite her disability, she is being given a big chance to prove herself. She was given Charstar as a mentor. Echo Paw tries to tell her sister that she should consider this a huge honor. Surely this means that Charstar thinks she has real potential. Mimic, however, is not quite convinced. What if Charstar just thinks she needs extra protection? Echo Paw, meanwhile, was assigned to Vinetuft. This was done at the suggestion of Hawthornfur before his passing. He said that if he couldn't train his niece himself, then maybe she could be trained by the same cat who trained him. Maybe that could be the next best thing. And surely, they all thought, once he was recovered, they would be able to train together. Of course, that never ended up happening. And finally, we have history repeating itself, as we once more end this year with a litter of kittens that were rescued by Ghost Apple. These kittens were practically raised by the whole clan. They were nursed by Moonswarm, cared for by Ghost Apple, practically adopted by Snapdragon Valley and Burnet Spots, babysat by Rocktuft and Jaco, and entertained and cared for by pretty much the entire clan, especially those that were hanging out in the medicine den. These three are all sweethearts, but a real pawful, as not one of them could ever sit still, except perhaps when they're talking someone's ear off. I've already started work on year 3, so that should come out in no time. See you next time.